Round we go for day 14. Hello. Today you join me in the back garden. Clara's off from... Clara's off from school. So we've spent a lot of time indoors, but I've been sort of like just trying to pace myself around. I think I'm a bit shy of my 10 grand today. But she has been keeping me busy and active.
I found water. And this is my state of Mr. Ducky. And oh, my ducky's gone. I don't know where to find it.
Today has been another paperwork day. I've got a limpet.
Limpet, hooray!
Honestly, if it's not one, it's the other. Come on, down. So today ultimately has been a bit of a weird day. Not only have I received a phone call from a hospital department asking why Natasha hasn't turned up to an appointment. That got awkward. But I also received a letter saying she had to renew her driver's licence because she'd had it for, a certain length of time. She learned to drive before me. Quite a long time before me, actually, strangely. I think so. I started driving when I was 17 and then just kind of gave up. But yeah. So to start with, she ferried me around a lot of places. So I always thought I'd pay her back. So I started to drive. Had a couple of failed driving tests when we moved up here and Tasha got pregnant. I realised I probably would have to drive. So, especially when it came to having to get to the hospital. Ultimately, that's what prompted me to get my licence. But I always thought Natasha was a very good driver. And then I learned to drive and I realised... I joke, of course. She wasn't a bad driver at all. She helped me to learn to drive as well. One of her school friends, Amy. Hi, Amy, if you're watching this. Thank you. She took me out on some lessons. I did ultimately fail that test, but it wasn't my fault. In my defence, it was a very badly labelled roundabout. But learning was an absolute, I say, joy, because Natasha and Amy got on so well that whilst I was having my lessons, Natasha would sit in the back of the car. And her and Amy would frequently get into a giggle loop. One of them would say something funny, at which point the other one would start laughing. So the first one would start laughing, which made the other one laugh even more, which made them laugh even more. And so I would spend 45-minute lessons listening to 30 minutes worth of giggling. It got even worse when I had to do something like an emergency stop. Because beyond doing that, both of them were in such fits of laughter, there were no other instructions coming. So I actually just had to drive around a bit on my own and try and figure it out. But no, Natasha was always the better driver. She'd always been doing it longer. It did kind of break her heart that towards the end she couldn't actually drive so well. Health got to a point that it became not dangerous to drive, but certainly not advisable. It was just after Clara was born. We have some friends, the NCT group. We joined up with NCT, the Childcare Trust. That if ever you're expecting a child at any point, go with them. They're fantastic. If not for the lessons that you get taught, for the people you meet, the friendships you make, because everyone is in the same boat, and every single parent gave birth within a 6 to 8 week gap. There's children's within 2 days of Seb. And we still talk to them, and it's nice having that group of people who always just check up on you because they understand exactly what's going on. Where was I? Yeah, so we planned a little meetup with all the other NCT parents at I think it was Ickworth House. It's National Trust property. Um, and I was still a provisional at this point. Tasha was a provisional. I must have been just after Seb then. Yeah, no, because I was a provisional, and Tasha had a full license, and I had to take over driving from her as we got to Bury because it just got a bit too difficult. She couldn't concentrate on the road. Her eyes. I did say she had an eye operation, and it was to correct a squint, but when she was tired or fatigued or ill, the squint would come back. It would sort of like go the other way. So it's like the muscles relaxed too much, but the one that had been corrected just completely went wonky. So she couldn't see straight. That's how you could tell she was tired. But I had to take over driving from her. After that point, she always insisted that she was letting me drive. She chose to let me drive more. But trips down to Kent to see friends, I would drive, we'd get to the motorway bit, we'd swap over at the last set of services, she'd drive, and then we'd swap back at the end of the motorway. And she'd say she was helping me learn, but she wasn't comfortable driving. She still would, but you get that point where you just realise that something's amiss, but you kind of don't want to admit it. And that is kind of where all the problems started. But she was still happy. She hid it so well. I don't think anyone actually realised. And of course, I was under strict orders not to talk about it. But people needed to know. And some days I just have to shout at her to stop being stupid. I was so glad when I passed my test because it meant that I could actually do the ferrying around a lot more. Hindsight, I look back and I just thought I wish I'd said something then. You can't look like that. You can't think like that because it's unhealthy. You'll sit here going, what if, for a million different scenarios in a Doctor Strange-esque fashion, but you'll never achieve anything different apart from just making yourself sad. So I'm focusing on this day by day, accepting what's happened. It still doesn't feel real. If anybody else understands what's happening, or if anyone else goes through this, it's been 2 and a bit weeks and it still doesn't feel real. It feels like she's still about to phone and say, you haven't visited me in a hospital, or something's going to happen and I'm going to get a WhatsApp from her. The car was hers as well, so that's a Motability car, so that's going back in a couple of weeks, and my mum and dad have managed to source one and they're going to drop it off to me. I say drop it off to me. It's in Wales currently, so they're going to get it over here and then figure out how to get back, which I'm going to be honest, ever so grateful for, because I think that's one thing that would have made life tricky, not having a car. Would have been a long walk for Seb to get to school. They say silence is golden. I've got a child. Silence is incredibly suspicious. Right, should we put the lid back on that, please? No, don't step in it.